Hello and welcome. I'm the Restless Kaiser.
And I'm Woolly Mike, but together we are Modelling for Advantage.
So we're starting a World War II North Africa campaign.
Yep.
We've only got a 4-foot table, so we decided that the naval battles for combined arms are going to have to be victory at sea, because models move 5, 6, 7 inches rather than 30, 40 centimetres, which is obviously 12, 15 inches. We think it'll fit. It's something quite different. Well, look at the rules. It's all right. It's all right. So this is, Warlord kindly sent us this, knowing that we were going to video a campaign. They sent us this. They sent us the British one as well. We'll review that on a separate cover. This is the Regia Marina.
Marina.
Is the Italiano fleet of World War II. You probably know, if you know anything about World War II, you probably know that the Italian fleet didn't achieve a terrific amount in World War II. But I can tell you that as someone who's done a little bit studying, a little bit reading on this topic, it's not because their ships were no good. These ships are pretty competitive, quite modern, quite powerful. So we're going to have a look at them. Do you want to tell them what the fleet box contains, starting with the oddity at the top?
Aquila, the aircraft carrier. The Conto de Caviar battleship. The Etna cruiser. The Polar cruiser. The Luigi Cardona cruiser. 3 navigatory class destroyers. And 4 Mitsubishi Reggiani RE 2001 Falco 2 flights. Includes ship cards, damage sliders, and assembly and painting required.
So this stuff is all Warlord, it's all traditional resin, not Warlord resin, I think. Shall we start with the capital ships? And we'll start with the Aquila, as you can find it. The Italians did not have an aircraft carrier in World War II, but they were building one. This is the Regia Marina ship, the Aquila. And it's a cruise liner that's been converted, is that right?
They were in the process of building a cruise liner, which was going to be called the Roma. When they then started to transfer her into the aircraft carrier, they realised that there was already a ship called the Roma, so this was named the Aquila.
I think she was launched, but she wasn't commissioned. Is that right?
I understand. I don't think she saw any action.
Now, aircraft carriers, World War II. You probably, if you've read some general history books, you've probably been told aircraft carriers is where it's at. Battleships is absolute junk. They're made obsolete by aircraft carriers. This is a very bizarre thing to say if you've done any reading about the naval battles, or even looked at the building programs of the navies involved. Battleships were a poor investment in the Pacific because you have distances of thousands of miles of sea. In the Mediterranean and North Atlantic, you're probably always in range of land-based aircraft. And the amount of aeroplanes you can put on a carrier is relatively small compared to the amount of aeroplanes you can put on, say, Sicily or Malta, for example. So as a tool for power projection, the aircraft carrier isn't necessarily a great choice. Certainly not as a platform for delivering strike aircraft. If you see the aircraft carriers that the Royal Navy deploys in the Mediterranean, they're pretty much to provide fighter cover. There is a strike element, but if you look at a Pacific aircraft carrier, it's mostly strike aircraft with some escorts. If you look at a carrier that served in the Mediterranean, it's at least 50% fighters. Its primary job is to provide close-in fleet defence. So, did they need an aircraft carrier?
I would say yes, because doing some reading, there was never a naval air arm for the Italians. The aircraft, because obviously they were land-based, stayed in the control of the Air Force. And I believe that there's a special rule that the aircraft may not turn up because they didn't get the orders.
Because they didn't get the orders. Yeah, but that's a command and control issue. I'm talking about like in terms of technology. By having an aircraft carrier, they would have their own. Yeah, I think for close defence, I think you can't beat an aircraft carrier for providing close-in defence. But I don't think it's a game changer. And if you look at the amount of aircraft that the Nazis deploy into the Mediterranean, it's that's how Kesselring ends up getting involved in there. He's sent there as the Luftflotte commander. before he takes over the ground campaign later. But as a model, I've handled a lot of the old, like Skytrex, Navwar era metal battleships and so forth. These are probably 50% larger, maybe even a little bit more. The smoothness of the resin underneath is lovely to touch, isn't it? That's very, very slick. But the fidelity on this is really nice. These are really good looking model. You've got a nice bow wake, as it's cutting through the water. And the Mediterranean is a very pale sea. It is very vivid, sorry. It's very, very blue. So I'm looking forward to playing.
They do paint these in quite a blue.
Yeah. So as a model, I think it's really nice. Now you've got there the
Conte de Cavour.
The Conte de Cavour. So the Conte de Cavour is one of, I think the Italians have 3 classes of battleships. They have the brand new ones. They have some interwar ones, and these ones of this class, I think there's 3 of them. They are World War I pattern dreadnoughts. So yeah, this class of ship had a major rebuild in the late 30s. I think finished around 1940, in time for the war. The Italians, I suppose, they got to pick when they joined the war. But the scale of this rebuild, the removal of the turret and the magazines, upgrading the machinery for a ship. She does make 27 knots, which is competitive for a World War II battleship. It's not as fast as some of the newest ones coming from America, but comparable, faster than much of the Royal Navy's capital fleet. But she's only got 12-inch rifles, and that is a small gun. Again, the American Navy has got this fleet of battleships in Pearl Harbor called standard battleships, but even they're better than this. So why, and rebuilding the deck to give it 5 inches, so it's got a bomb-proof deck. So again, it's meeting the specs of a modern battleship in every major category, except it's got a 1914 armour scheme rather than a more modern armour scheme, which is more weight efficient. So rather than the newer ones, they're not just all along the belt, they just protect the citadel areas, the machinery, the boiler rooms, the magazines, rather than just all of it. But the 12-inch gun just doesn't feel like it's ever going to penetrate a modern battleship at modern ranges. Is the problem. And yet a lot of money was spent. But I guess it was a budgetary thing. And when we talk about the Royal Navy and the King George V considered, there are reasons why people might wanted to do it. And the other thing, because you got them out, is you're going to get a little baggie with this fleet of metal parts. So parts of the funnel and the conning tower and so forth. And these are bits where I think the resin would just snap off.
Yeah.
So they're giving you the metal. You're going to have to get some CA glue to put them on. The details where they are very, very nice, but I can see why that would just snap off coming out of the mould, I think, if it was that. So these are very nice, and they do feel like substantial pieces of the centre of your fleet.
Yeah. They're both sitting flat as well.
Yes. There's no gap there or anything.
Portland bend.
They're actually really nice to have in your hand. In terms of finish, there's no flash whatsoever on the actual model. There's just a little bit around the lip of the base. Yeah. Need a little bit of filing. If you are going to file resin, wear a mask. You're going to sand it down because that stuff is toxic as heck. Should we look at the stat cards?
Okay.
Which it comes with. So again, if you've not played Victory at Sea before, like Blood Red Scar, I know Blood Red Scars doesn't have Cruel Sea Scars.
Cruel Seas.
Unit card, you have like a paper hit point tracker around the outside. But you can buy from third parties, and I think Skytrex definitely make them for Cruel Seas, but the cards are different sizes perhaps. But third parties make MDF trays with sliders if you don't like the paper tokens. Yeah. So what we're looking for...
So there's the Aquila.
Mm-hmm. and we don't know the game terribly well, but there's the unit card. It says it comes with 12 flights of aircraft and costs 210 points. 12 flights feels like a lot. Depends how many is in a flight.
Yeah.
But you also get a little bit of history on the back. And it's all in that Courier font as well. It makes it look terribly World War II with a nice silhouette of the warship. So if you're not sure exactly where these metal pieces go, you've actually got a silhouette to go with it. And the Conte de Cavour. Conte de Cavour. Yeah, and in terms of how fast these ships move across the table, both of these move at 5 inches, which is speeds compared to real of 27 knots, I think was the flank speed of that one. But the game is quite involved in that you actually get the firing arcs of the guns. So it tells you, you know, and they're named using the name. So you have an A and B turret and an X and Y, which is the front and back, etc. Which are really nice. They are the standard turret positions. The battleship is 310, so I assume you have to pay for the aircraft differently. It's not coming preloaded. So those are those two ships with a little bit of history of them. The guns from the Conte de Cavour, by the way, down here. So these metal strips, they come with the name of the warship that this is the particular thing for. The gates on these are very thick. So you want probably a sharp knife rather than side cutters to get these off. And there is a bit of flash on these. But again, I think it's to keep the fidelity up. I think they can get better fidelity in metal in these ways rather than doing that. And of course, it would be a terrible overhang on the battleship rifles to try and have them overhang. So that'll be why that is. What do we fancy next?
So the Polar, the Zara class boat.
Oh, we'll go for the cruisers. So we have 3 cruisers. And we tell immediately. So they've all got... Oh, so that's quite a substantial bit of resin on this one. That'll need cutting off, actually. It's flash, which we haven't seen on the other 2. It has got the name down the side in relief. And I have seen these painted up, you know, with you can dry brush that, I think. Yeah.
I was actually considering when I do this is whether I should do them in the Italian flag colours, the name, some of the letters and.
Oh right, do them red, white, and green.
Yeah.
In that, maybe. So these are what, 5 inches long on the base?
Yeah.
Again, fidelity's really, really good. Do you want to have a look at one?
Yeah.
You do get this crib sheet in there, which is telling you which ship is which. If you're not used to looking at ships, I realize some of you maybe have never played a naval war game or be into ships. You generally want to be looking at the shape of the superstructure, which is the kind of built-up sections in the middle, the crew accommodations and so forth. Most of this superstructure is reasonably unique and gives you the silhouette of the ship. Obviously the bow does to some extent, and a lot of these Italian ones, the bows are much higher. They went for a high-speed fleet. So the Polar is the first one, is it?
Yeah, so that's the Zara class cruiser.
And is that the heavier one? Yeah, so there's the Zara class. The Polar is a Zara class cruiser. It's a heavy cruiser. In World War II, in World War I, there'd been battleship escalation on an incredible scale. If you go to school in the UK, probably the same elsewhere, they'll tell you one of the reasons the First World War happened is because of the naval arms race, which is probably not true, actually. But that's a story for another day. It was certainly true, though, that every class of battleship that Britain and Germany was making was bigger and better than the one before. And people after the war were in danger of going back to that, and they knew that they had spent an enormous amount of money on an arms race. And there were more players. Japan and the United States were also building dreadnoughts now. So there was a conference, I think 1925, the Washington Naval Treaty, where they agree a number of things about warships, one of which is to cap battleships at 35,000 tons, with some exceptions for ones already on the slipways or built, like Hood is massive. But they thought, we're going to cap cruisers at 10,000 tons. At the time, I don't think that there was a cruiser in the world that was more than 6,000 tons. But everyone was thinking about upgunning cruisers to 8-inch. 8-inch rifles, that is, by the way. Normally when people talk about warships, they'll define them by the caliber of their main rifles. Yeah, so this is an 8-inch cruiser, which is probably what makes it a heavy cruiser. You could say the armor would make it a heavy cruiser, but really, there isn't a heavy cruiser that doesn't have 8-inch guns. And so they cap them at 10,000 tons. And what happens is in the 1920s and the 1930s, a whole generation of ships that nobody necessarily ever wanted starts getting built. These heavy cruisers, 10,000 ton warships with 8-inch guns, which is what the Tsar is. And you'll find every navy has got some of these, but nobody ever had them beforehand. Heavy or armoured cruisers. But she's a nice model. So they'll have cruiser speed, but they'll outfight other cruisers because they've got these 8-inch guns, secondary armament, and usually a decent anti-aircraft battery, depending on the time in the war. So again, this has a 7-inch move in the game. So you still get several turns. You're not immediately running off the other side of the table. That was the Zara.
So the Luigi Cardona.
Luigi Cadorna. That is this one. Yeah, that's this one. I'm just going to look at that one to be certain. Yeah. So the Luigi Cardona, it's a 6-inch cruiser, right?
Yep.
6-inch cruiser. So 6 inches kind of standard for a pre-war light cruiser. She won't be that much lighter than the heavy cruiser, to be honest, but probably should be a bit faster. What's her speed?
Speed 6.
Speed is only 6? So she's actually slower, so she might be older. I'm not sure.
Displacement 7,000 tons.
Yeah, compared to notionally 10,000. The Italians, the Germans, the Japanese, and to some extent the British, all cheated on this 10,000 ton limitation. Just some nations did it to a bigger degree than others. So again, 6-inch gun, decent war fighting. The idea with a light cruiser like this would tend to operate outside the outer envelope of the fleet because it will have proper radio equipment. It might even have radar depending on the period and the fleet involved, but there would be fleet scouts, and in certain actions of certain sizes they could be formed into their own battle lines if there are other significant numbers of light cruisers, and they have the kind of guns that can rip up destroyers pretty good. Towards the middle of the war, a lot of them start getting equipped again with a lot more anti-aircraft weapons because they're going to be on their own and they're going to be the first ones that the planes find.
We're talking about the definition, if you could even see the seaplane launchers.
Yes, and so again, cruisers would be the smallest class of ship that you could launch a seaplane from, which again makes them good for scouting purposes.
So that means you must have the Etna class.
So this one is a funny one because I think this is a light cruiser and it's way, way smaller than the other two. Is it more like 6,000 tons?
6,500.
6.5. This was, I think, was built for the Thai Navy. There's a couple of them, is being built for them, and then the war starts, so it's kept. So it looks quite different, but it's still got those Italian design cues. It's got a raised forward deck, which is quite common. So that kind of clearance, I forget what they call that. Freeboard.
Freeboard, yeah.
Freeboard, because their ships tend to run quite fast. But a lot of these are built, a lot of the Italian ships have actually been built in the late 20s, early 30s. They're quite new. And so we've had a lot more experience of war service from the First War in the North Atlantic, where things that seem like a good idea turn out to, actually you need a lot more freeboard, or the guns are awash in certain sea states. Well, the Mediterranean is relatively calm. Italy had designs of having a global empire.
Yeah.
starting in Libya.
Yeah.
So yes, it's quite an unusual and distinctive one. And she's also got 5-inch guns rather
5-inch guns, yeah,
rather than 6-inch, which is not standard. It's much more of a World War One era cruiser would be like this.
Yeah.
Those are the cruisers, all very nice models. Again, they've got metal guns. Because with your guns on the whole, with guns, bigger is better. Certainly once you get into ships with armour. So a 6-inch cruiser is really going to struggle fighting an 8-inch cruiser because the 8-inch cruiser at many battle ranges can't be penetrated by 6-inch guns. It's not like with tanks. Generally, the ship should be fairly proof against its own weapons at reasonable ranges, which is why closing becomes important. But it's not the case in every case. Maybe I'm 40% proof, maybe I'm 60% proof. Angle of shell and all kinds of other things start to matter. But generally speaking, for fighting smaller classes of ships, the smaller guns are generally better. I mean, it's like if you were to fire a 12-inch gun at a destroyer with an armor-piercing shell, it's going to leave a 1-foot hole all the way through the ship. And probably the detonator is never going to fire because it didn't hit anything hard enough. It just kept going. But these ships are still manhandled. So the lighter the shell, the higher the rate of fire.
Yes.
The significantly higher rate of fire. So within light cruiser classes, whether a 5-inch, a 5.25, a 5.5, or a 6 is better, is open to a bit of debate. If you're fighting a heavier cruiser, then the bigger gun is better. But if you're fighting a light cruiser or a destroyer, the higher rate of fire is probably more useful.
Right, so baggie number 3.
Baggie number 3 is our
Navigatory class destroyers.
And another baggie, which we'll get to. So here's your destroyers.
You get 3 cards, obviously, 1 for each ship.
Well, that's already nice, isn't it? They haven't just given you one with instructions on how to photocopy. So these destroyers, you can see they're much, much lower in the water. They're much smaller. It's quite an interesting looking ship. Can we see the metal parts?
The metal parts are there?
Yeah. One of the funnels is in metal. In fact, much of the superstructure, you see it pegs in here.
Yes.
At the front. So I think on this ship being much smaller, the superstructure would be too fragile to mould in the resin that they've given you the metal parts for it, which makes sense. Front and rear superstructure.
Yeah, there's a gun mounted on that rear superstructure deck. You can just...
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So only one of the forward guns is. So the definition on this is still good. You've got a bit of on the one arm handling, you've got a lug from the moulding process. But the fidelity is good. And the Italian warships look good because they have that red and white striping.
Yes.
On the front of it. I don't know if you've looked at some of the painted ones. I don't know whether that's on all of their ships, but it's certainly they've got most warships are either grey or in some kind of dull grey camouflage pattern. Whereas the Italians have got really hazard stripes or whatever on the front of their deck. It's like, we're coming for you, bro. Because we all know that red stripes make you go faster, right?
Yeah. Well, it's like the common fit about the Japanese ones. They had the target with the red bullseye on the front of the deck, didn't they?
For the American bombers. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Interesting. So the extreme range, in terms of thinking about how the game plays out, your destroyer's extreme range is 24 inches, and they also only move 7. So they're not even necessarily in firing range at the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
Which is good, and that's their extreme range, which I like. And again, you have some information on the back, even telling you about when the different refits, what they added to these warships. Now, because this is a cruiser, this is a bigger scale of game. For these fleet destroyers, all of the entire battery fires as a single weapon.
Yes.
all of the guns are a single weapon. They just get more dice, basically. Pull them together. But yeah, if you're and if you've not played this type of game before, by the way, even if you can take the shot, don't bother firing light guns at battleships. You're just wasting your own time. Your life is too short to roll lots of dice that then end up not doing anything. There is one more thing in here.
Well, just before the other thing I was just looking at, we're talking about fidelity. The wakes, the destroyers, nice high speed. They've got very defined wakes.
Oh, the wake, the angle of the wake.
Yes,
it's quite sharp. Yeah, to make it look like it's steaming through the water. And we also, I really did think these were going to be metal. We get aircraft flights. These are probably slightly overscaled to make them fit. Let's see if we can work out how all this stuff goes together. So you get a strip of 4 planes, not 5.
Yeah,
4 planes in a elongated L shape, and they're molded quite nicely. I mean, I don't know this particular plane personally, but that looks a lot like an Italian plane. And then you have this stand that it rests on. So let's see if we can work out how you
right on the stand. You've got an F and a B.
Yeah.
When you put the ring, the little life ring over the top of it, there's a lug that sits in the holes on the other side.
Oh.
So you can designate whether this is a flight of fighters with the F or bombers.
Right. It overlays. I see. Because that's on the underside, there is a little bit of cleanup to do for the lug that I've got.
Yeah.
But so instead of it being a dial for F and B, they've moulded it in such a way as you can achieve the same thing for fighters or bombers. So which is nice, because at any distance I'm not going to be able to tell what type of planes they are. So that's an interesting thing. And then it mounts on like that. Yeah, so again, some cleanup, and obviously it would need to be glued. But you've got 1 flight stand per flight of aircraft, so... Can we get magnets this small? I think for transport purposes, I think I would want to magnetise these.
I think a bit of fettling, you can go magnets on these. I've got some some very small ones that might work this.
Just in terms of transport, it's quite a short and sturdy flight stem. So if you've got a foam case where the compartments are deep enough, I'm sure it would be fine. But yeah, these aircraft are reasonably in scale with the thing, which is why they've been put on strips. I've seen these done in a few different ways. I think this kind of works. You always have the problem of what to do with the space in between the planes. A lot of people will paint that blue, like whatever blue they've done their seeing. I might go for black, just kind of acknowledge it's there, but kind of mentally block out the black. Like see-through flight stems, they don't quite work for me. I think black ones look better in general. I think I'd be inclined to paint the whole thing black, but you know, your mileage may vary. But it's a nice sculpt. This is a clever little idea, working within the limitations of what you got. The sculpts we've seen are all clean. The only clean up to do is on the basing, although it is a substantial filing. The metal components are good. You can see why they've been used, you know, but you can at a glance see how many guns a ship has got, which is, I think, always nice. I think you should be able to recognise that. And the number of parts to glue in them is very small, but it's obviously, you couldn't keep the fidelity without it, so I'm kind of glad that they've done it.
The only strange bit is we've done some research and we can't find out why these...
Oh yeah, why they're Mitsubishi planes.
They are Mitsubishi Reggiani RE2001 Falcons.
And so we were kind of like, is this a Japanese fighter bomber built under license or something? But it seems to have been built and designed in Italy. Maybe it's a Mitsubishi engine.
Oh, yes.
I'm going to take a punt and say that it'd be a Mitsubishi engine built under license.
That goes. If you know, put it in the comments.
Yeah.
We couldn't find the answer.
And if I'm right, woo! If I'm wrong, boo! All right, look, I think these are really nice. models. Now, I see every time you go there, there's some new ships in the cabinet at Warlord, because they've got the names on the side, and they have major refits during the course of the war, mostly to upgun the anti-aircraft. The anti-aircraft armament of warships increases massively during the war as they realise that planes are what sink ships, not other ships. The inclusion of the Italian aircraft carrier is the bit that's a bit weird about it, but I think what they've tried to do is give everybody a starter fleet that's the same.
Yeah.
If you're playing a war game in which you can build units, like a campaign type game or a video game, you could build an Italian aircraft carrier if you wanted to. This one was nearly finished. They just didn't get used. Same with the German one. But it wasn't. This is not a napkin design. It could have been finished if the war had gone differently, I think. But the war did not go well for Italy, really, at any point. Yeah. So she just didn't get finished. So that oddity, at least, it keeps your fleet comparable to others, and this is the starter box. If I have an actual gripe about this as a historical gamer, it's not the inclusion of the Aquila, because I think we're playing fantasy games anyway. It's that these ships are all from quite different periods.
Yes.
And some of these ships are sunk before others have been built, kind of problem. It's not like this is a squadron from the Italian Navy in 1942 or whatever. So some of these are sunk before others, conditioned. Not necessarily exactly in. Well, the war's over before the Aquila's built. Is the one here. But this is a 1942 pattern, for example.
1940.
And some of these
1940 and a 1943. Oh no, they're all 1940. Those ones.
Apart from this one, which is 42. But some of these were sunk at Cape Matapan, I think, which is 41, for example. So they couldn't be in the same squadron. But again, you're playing a fantasy game, aren't you? If you're playing a game with 5 or 6 warships, that's very unlikely to actually be a historical naval war game. Anyway, I hope this was useful to you. Thank you for watching.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
If you're still here and you're looking for ways to support the channel, there's obviously a lot of ways down in the description, but a key way is to use our affiliate links to Whaling Games and others. You buy your models from them, it doesn't cost you a penny more, and we earn a little bit of commission. Thank you.